And then today we're gonna try breakout rooms for you to discuss questions. We'll see how it works. So we'll try breakout rooms. Maybe 5 of you will meet, and then I'll see how it goes. All right, after I lecture finishing Buddhism in Southeast Asia, and we'll see. You know, moving from screen from Windows to the other one, that's challenging for me as well. Along with this, okay, slide so. Yeah, so last time we talked about some of the festivals. Vaisak, it's called Vaisak or Vesak, different pronunciation. Vaisak, Vaisak. You know, to commemorate the birth, the enlightenment, and the parinirvana. Remember the parinirvana, the final, you know, nirvana, the death of Buddha Gautama. So to commemorate that, they you know, perform festivals consisting of different you know, activities, offerings, prayers, recitation of the scripture, families, you know, and others. So you have that as well. And not only during these festivals, you also do rituals involving priests or the sangha, the monks, for example, like weddings, and of course, funeral. In the weddings, usually they, you know, they have some religious elements and also cultural practice as well. Different culture in different countries, in Thailand, in Laos, in Cambodia, in Indonesia. Buddhist weddings are quite different, you know, in terms of the cultures that involve. But generally speaking, if they involve, you know, religious ritual into the wedding, they would, for example, the bride and the groom would say, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dhamma, I take refuge in the Sangha, for example. And then the 5 precepts, remember, no killing, no stealing, and so on, that we talked about before. And then chanting the prayer, you know, like a vow to basically to keep the noble truths, and also to be able to attain the nibbana, the enlightenment. So religious wedding as well as cultural dimension of it, you can find in the weddings. And we talk about localization. When we use the term localization, okay, remember I always mention, localization quite often, making something from outside local, right? Making something foreign local, you know, like you have a Buddhism coming outside Southeast Asia, but then it become local Buddhism. It become, you know, Thai Buddhism, Burmese Buddhism, Indonesian Buddhism, and so on and so forth. So you have localization, making something from outside, making, you know, local, making the belief and practice your own. And then in this process of localization, they would incorporate or you know, blend local beliefs and practices like ancestor worship, veneration of the ancestor worship. And if they had known, you know, Hindu god or goddesses, they would also include that, you know, different religious dimensions and practices into one, and it become their own practice in their own particular context. All right. Now we talk about modernization. Yeah? Modernization. This is a topic that one of the authors, Donald Swearer, The Buddhist World of Southeast Asia, discuss in the book. And I believe this book is accessible on a UCR library. I believe it's free. So it's accessible. So if you want to check about this book, Buddhist World of Southeast Asia, for your essay or for your final essays or and so on, for your own reference. So in this book, he talks about modernization, Buddhism and modernization. What does it mean? when we talk about modernization, modernization, you know, it's a theory. Yeah, it's by Western scholars. Uh, Basically suggests that, you know, this theory suggests that the world is becoming more modern and modern. But when the world is becoming more and more modern, people are becoming less and less religious. So theories of modernization suggest that modernity and religion are incompatible, all right? Because people are concerned about the present life. They are concerned about how to make a living. They're concerned about how to be successful, you know, in business, in politics, and so on and so forth, without necessarily relying on religion. So modernization theories, especially the one of the, you know, early theories of modernization, suggested religions decline because people become more modern. Okay, that's the theories of modernization. So another aspect of the theory of modernization is secularization. Yeah, secularization suggests that modernization means secularization, that people become more secular. Uh, in other words, people become less religious or even anti-religious for some, you know, for some cases or many cases in different parts of the world. So the decline in religion suggests secularization, because modern people, according to this theory, would say that religion is backward, something of the past, right? You know, superstitious, right? This is superstitious. They believe in spirits, they believe in the divine that you cannot see, you cannot touch. And it is also considered reactionary, you know, reactionary to the modern world there, you know, and so on and so forth. This is a theory that some in the past endorse, right? However, now more recent theories of public religion and religious studies criticize those theories. In fact, modernization transformed religion. Modernization doesn't mean secularization. Modernization doesn't mean a decline in beliefs in religions and beliefs in spirits and so on and so forth. So modernization and religion might be compatible. It doesn't mean that they reject religion. They might adapt to religion. They might adapt to the modern, but they keep religion. Okay. So the question is how this possible, how this processes become possible in particular contexts in Southeast Asia. That's why Buddhism and modernizations, you know, this is a topic that scholars, you know, have studied and continue to study. What kind of relationship? What is the dynamic behind these processes? Being being religious and being modern at the same time. How about the economic benefit? If you are religious, are you still interested in obtaining profit, for example, in getting profits, economic profits? Or you are actually becoming less economic, you know, less economy oriented when you are religious. How about the relationship between men and women? Because the modern interactions make many places, you know, interact, men, women, and even in other cases, also, you know, in the West, we know LGBT, for example. You do have also the questions about lesbian, homosexuality, transgender, and so on in relation to religion. And it is one of the very interesting and very important topic in religious studies, gender and religions, all right? But for now, this is just to give you an overview of modernization and secularization when we talk about religion. And these theories might be also considered when we talk about other religions, not only Buddhism. You know, when we talk about Christianity, Islam, and even Hinduism, modernization and religion topic is very, very interesting and important. So now, in Thailand, for example, or in Laos and Cambodia, how about reasons why even during this modernization or people becoming concerned about how to get job, how to be educated, why on earth that some of them chose or have chosen to become a monk, right? To uh, to become renunciants, yeah, bhikkhu. And this, you can find answers to this question, different answers, of course. Some say that it is through the monastic order that they can get education, right? It is through the monastic order that actually can get education, both religious and at some other context, they also learn about knowledge, what's certain skills, and so on and so forth. Education, religious education particularly. So they, and of course Buddhist education, in order to be able to read the Pali Canon or the Mahayana Sutra, Mahayana text, and be able to recite the prayers, the text, and would be able to become monks and service to the lay persons. So education is one of the reasons. And then asceticism, or being ascetic, being a celibate in different forms, of course, that's another reasons. And the main goal for most of them, you can say, enlightenment. It's to be a monk means that you will attain enlightenment, and hopefully you can also help others to get enlightenment or nirvana or nibbana. So education, asceticism, enlightenment, there might be some other reasons why they become monks, but the point is, you do have many in Southeast Asia who decide, some maybe because of the family, expectation, or the environment that needs religious leadership, that boys become novices, young monks, and then they become monks when they are older. So it's different reasons. So the monks have been in relations with the politics, with the state, right? With the state. I hope that you remember, and I talk about the kings in Thailand and Buddhism. So mutual relationship, reciprocity, right? Reciprocity means you have a mutual relationship. The king help the Sangha, and the Sangha help the king. So you have some changing rules of the monk in politics. So they would support the government. They would receive a stipend. They would receive honors, by the ruling parties or the governments. This is this example in Thailand, 1970s. The monks would interpret Buddhist teachings and doctrines in nationalistic terms. Sila, Samadhi, and Panna, for example, those are Pali terms, Pali Buddhist terms, but then they interpret or reinterpret the terms, the Buddhist terms, into modern terms. Nation, yeah. Samadhi is meditation, it's religion, and Panna, king. And against communism in the context of, some of the political ideologies. They are very critical against certain ideologies or other ideologies. So some of the monks would reinterpret religious teachings into either or capitalism or socialism or others as well. So this is just an example of how Buddhist teachings have been interpreted in a political way. Okay, this is one of the relationship between religion and politics. In Hindu tradition as well, in India, although it's not so predominant in Southeast Asia in terms of the relationship between Hinduism and the politics, you have that connection, religion and politics. And then in society, of course, the monk is available for the society, helping the society, supporting the society. The monastery would serve as school for many, boys there, and also serve as orphanage. In other cases, as nursing home, bank if they also have some economic transaction in the community, pharmacy. They offer also some traditional and modern medicines, counseling. It's called the community development, monastery. So the monasteries which also serve both religious and social functions. Yeah. So monks also serve the society in different ways, religiously and also, economically, here culturally, and also psychologically and socially, right? Okay. Monks also at times would protest certain political decisions or conditions. They are involved in politics. They are involved, if not in the political parties directly, they would express their political opinions on the street, demonstration, of peaceful demonstrations. In most cases, this is just an example. In 2007, it's called Saffron Revolution. Monks turning into street demonstrators in Burma. They protest the economic crisis in 2007 in Burma, for example. It's just an example. All right, that's monks in politics. Education, yeah. How about education? So Buddhist education, like an example is in Thailand. Generally speaking, Buddhist education would involve teachings of the scripture, right? Teaching of the scripture. If it is Theravada, then they would teach the Tripitaka, the three baskets, Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka, right? But they also would teach, of course, practices of meditation according to Theravada Buddhist ways. In Mahayana Buddhism, they have also different strategies of meditation, different goals of meditation. Then they also would teach arts, humanities, social science. It depends on how the curriculum or to what extent the curriculum also includes social science, humanities, even life skill, for example. Providing monks and novices, and of course, they would hope, particularly in the universities, yeah, in the college, college context. Here I'm talking in the college situation where they also teach arts, humanities, and social sciences. In Thailand, you have the Department of Religious Affairs. The Department of Religious Affairs, supported by the government, or part of the government, and in charge of religious education, including university. And in this case, you have Mahamakut University and Mahachulalongkorn University, established in late 19th century, and they survive to the present day. Yes, university, Buddhist universities, and this is what they teach and what they offer. Another function of these Buddhist universities in Thailand is to create a national unity, that they have this national Buddhist education where Buddhist young could get education and also, become not only monks, but also actors in helping the society in different professions after that. That's Buddhist education in more specifically Buddhist higher education in Thailand. You also have, of course, Buddhist education and the level of K5, K12 before college. So you have that, and in different in different countries in Southeast Asia, you would also find Buddhist elementary schools, junior high schools in these places. For environment, now we talk about environment. The environment, right? Is one of the actual and very important and interesting theme in modern time, even among the religious communities. The issue of environment, the green movement, the climate change, natural disasters, environmental crisis, all these problems related to our environment. So Buddhists also have been involved in expressing the ideas and even services to help solve the problem or minimize the crisis. One of the monks, it's considered an environmentalist monks in Thai, Pranak Anuraksa in Thai. Pranak Anuraksa is environmentalist monks. This is just a quote from one of the authors in Thailand, 1961. He who does good for self-glorification will be spurned by others. He who does good truthfully will live peacefully. Luxurious living turns one into a millionaire on loans. Sweating when young is better than repenting when old. Nothing is new in the world except constant change. You see here one of the key doctrines, constant change, right? Change, the life is impermanent. Remember that? Yeah, we'll talk about three characteristics of existence, right? Life is suffering. Remember that? And then everything changes and there is no self. There is no permanent self. So things change. It's one of the, Buddhist teachings, Buddhist ideas of existence. Another quote here: to have a sense of gratitude to nature is to gain an understanding of the essence of Buddhist morality. So in other words, as a Buddhist, they would show their gratitude to nature, and that's how they could understand the essence of Buddhist ethics. So that's just illustration and example of how Buddhist monks also have tried to engage in the real issues of the time. This is why some of the scholars talk about engaged Buddhism, especially in the context of Vietnam. So engaged Buddhism is Buddhism that is engaged in society, engaged in addressing social problems. One of the examples here is Thich Nhat Hanh, who founded the School for Social Service, it's a model for engaged Buddhism and Buddhist in Vietnam. The sick and the poor could help the rich and the healthy to grow beyond their ego attachments and to undergo personal growth. The enemies of Buddhists are not other people, but greed, anger, ignorance, and privileges. So this kind of understanding and interpretations of Buddhist teachings are very interesting and very important in the context of how they participate and they contribute to the society at large. It's not simply about teaching the Pali Canon, the scriptures, but also helping those in need. And of course, this is an example of how this is happening. It has happened before, and it is still happening today in Vietnam, in Thailand, in Indonesia. Even though they have a different terms for this engaged Buddhism, the Buddhism that is active in society, but you have that in Southeast Asia. Okay, Now we've been talking a lot about monks, right? About monks, about the education, right? How about the lay, the Buddhist lay people, the Buddhist ordinary peoples, right? The families, the households who are not monks. Uh, they have, of course, rules in society, of course, that they have been playing. In Burma, for example, they are involved in meditation, in different places. So you have a lay interest, a greater lay interest in meditation. A calm and pure spirit produce a healthy body and furthers efficiency in one's work. So they are businessmen, businesswomen, engaged in society, maybe teachers, anything in their profession, but they also practice meditation as a layperson. They are not in the monasteries, they are not in the Buddhist education, but they are living in society, and then they still practice meditation. Also healing, both physical and mental health that they are addressing, to try to address physical and mental health. Buddhism focus on discipline, right? Inner discipline, uh, avoiding yourself or preventing yourself from attachment, for example, from being attached to the worldly pleasures. This Buddhist morality helps create a healthier society physically and also morally and mentally. So that's why some of these practices, meditation among the lay people, they would talk about mental health, physical health, and healing is one of the ways to addressing the diseases, physical diseases and mental diseases. Then you have lay Buddhist movements. So some are unorganized, but others are more organized. So they organize themselves into organization, non-governmental organizations, civil society movements. So they are engaged in education, in public welfare, in social service, in political activism, teaching the Buddhist Dharma, Buddhist doctrines, Buddhist ethics, and social ethics. So Buddhist movements, are mostly lay Buddhist movements would engage in the social and political movements. All right, so that's the changing role of laity in Burma. So more and more people are engaged in society. That's the point. All right. By now, let me check if there is, okay, anything, chat, all right. Oh, this is a question. Okay, let's, okay. Let me see here, one of the question. Buddhist nationalism and in connection to the atrocity happening in Burma. It completely, okay, all right. So, this is a very complex question about, Buddhist nationalism and some minorities in Burma, like Rohingya. It's a very good question, okay? And among Buddhist societies in Burma, you have some different, different attitudes. So you don't have one monolithic Buddhist attitude toward nationalism, and especially with regard to minorities in Burma. And you have some international human rights movements criticizing the regime, the Burmese regime, with regard to the with regard to the actions against minorities. So there is some religious as well as national and political issues involved. And there's a very complex relationship. So many Buddhists in other places would be critical of some of these nationalistic, practices and even regime, reminding themselves of Buddhist teachings of compassion, of tolerance, and so on and so forth. So you do have a debate and different opinions with regard to this, relationship between Buddhist nationalism and minorities. And you can write a paper about this, and I have quite a number of sources about this particular question, especially in Myanmar or Burma, if you're interested in this particular question, okay? But generally speaking, when we teach about Buddhist teachings, we talk about suffering, about non-attachment, about compassion, about helping others, and so on and so forth, right? Good question. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about women, women, the role of women, and see how we can talk about this. So first, in the early Buddhist history, especially Theravada history, one of the reasons people converted to Buddhism because the teaching also appealed to women. This is one of the reasons why in early Southeast Asia, Theravada Buddhism has become dominant especially in mainland Southeast Asia. The maternal metaphor, which is the prominent theme in Buddhist texts, was relevant to women regardless of their class, social class, and social standing. The text, the Buddhist Theravada Buddhist text, was translated into local environment, and the interaction between motherhood and merit making provided new opportunities for women to display their piety and strengthen their link with the monkhood. So in a way, especially we talk about this in early time, well, that's also happening today. They like and became Buddhist because even though they are women, they still be offered opportunities for them to show their piety, their righteousness, their relationship with the religious teaching, with especially in the monastic order, the monkhood. So women still felt honored by becoming Buddhist, through being mother, through being women playing their roles in the society, supporting the monk, supporting the monks through giving them the food, making them the clothes, and so on, and helping them in the religious festivals and ritual. So women still, even though they are non-renunciant, they are non-nuns, they are non-bhikkhunis, but they can still feel that they have relationship, they have links with the monastic order. That's one of the reasons why Theravada Buddhism has become appealing continuously, even until today. But that's one element, okay, in one of the articles that you might read also. Other aspects of this is that different authors talk about this question of women and gender and Buddhism in different ways. I have here summaries of some of them. In Buddhist texts authored by male monastics, women are depicted in various ways. Women can attend arahatship, remember, enlightened, someone who attained liberation, like the goal in Theravada Buddhism. Women can attain enlightenment, but women also can give to the Sangha, the monastic order, yet as greedy, weak, and inferior. This is one of the depiction of women in some of the texts, and other texts you have about this, that's one of the relationship. Buddhist text, yeah, talks about different relationship between men, monkshood, and also women. There are four attitudes toward women, according to Alan Spongberg. One is soteriological inclusiveness, two, institutional androcentrism, three, ascetic misogyny, and four, soteriological androgyny. Well, these are the terms, difficult terms, but the point here is you have a different relationship. I'll give you an example of this. Okay, as the Buddhist movement become larger and monastic tradition become the norm, women's renunciation lives. Oh, sorry, women's renunciation lives were more and more carefully regulated. So now you have the regulation of the lives of women's renunciant. That's number one. One of the characteristics. The next is women were defined as a threat to the purity of the male monastic vocation. So some regard women as a threat to the purity. When they talk about purity and pollution, usually women were defined as a threat to that. Another aspect of this, gender differences become insignificant relative to the goal of enlightenment, and that ultimately they are perceived as unreal or mutually complementary. So the relationship of complementarity, complement each other, like monks need women to help them become monk. So mutual complementary. So it is very complex, the place of women in the Buddhist teachings. Another thing that we need to also mention when we talk about women in Buddhist society is patriarchal society. Yeah, patriarchal society is not confined, it's not limited to Buddhism, Buddhist societies. It is almost in almost all societies, even until today, patriarchy, right? So men hold power in many domains of life, politics, and so on and so on, education, society, economy, cultures, and so on. So patriarchal society, and that's patriarchal societies influence the way religion is practiced. Yeah, right. So patriarchy or patriarchal system shapes the way religion is interpreted, shapes the way men and women operate, shapes the way this dynamic relationship take place. So it's not so much about religion as such, but it's also cultural and political system, economic system that shape the way religion operates. Okay, and this is not limited to Buddhism. It's all religions that we know, even the non-religious. So that's another aspect that we need to consider when we talk about gender, women, and religions, even in Southeast Asia. All right. Mothers, they produce sons who became monks, and as homemakers, they prepare food, the food donated to monks. Yeah. And in the legendary story of the life of the Buddha, the women's rule is paralyzed by the tale of the young women, Sujata, who offer milk and honey sweetened rice to Prince Siddhartha while he sat under the Bodhi tree just before his enlightenment. So there was a rule of women, young women, helping Buddha, when he was under the Bodhi tree before he obtained enlightenment. So that's one of the episodes in the stories in the text that consider the role of women in helping the enlightenment of the Buddha. So that's basically, it's very complex. I just give you that when we talk about women in Southeast Asia. What else that we can talk about this? It reflects also differences among cultural environments in Myanmar. You know, some women actually have received honors for high achievement in the studies of the Pali, right? In the study of the scriptures. So there's been also a revival of women's renunciation movement in Sri Lanka, but also in Thailand. And you also have female order, bhikkhuni in Thailand. You know, ordination for women becoming a female nun or nun. And then you also have, yeah, even though there is some rejection and criticisms among the monks against the ordination of women, but women still do and, you know, continue their participation and even serving the Buddhist community in different ways. That's when we talk about Buddhist nuns, yeah, Buddhist female nuns. Layperson, women layperson play even more, you know, important role in society. Usually they would create, you know, social service for the family, for the neighborhoods, for education, others. So women play a very important role in this, including green movement. So many women have been involved in green movement, yeah, because you have problems in different part of Southeast Asia, like deforestation. You know, deforestation, the forests become less and less because people, you know, use the lands for you know, for residences, for factories and so on. So you have less and less forests. And then Buddhist lay organizations, sometimes supported by the Buddhist monks, try to resist this deforestation, try to make awareness among the people, you know, that nature has to be respected, that we have to be in harmony with nature. And that's, you know, what is Buddhist teaching. All right, so I have you know, talk a little bit about this and of course other elements of gender when it comes to the third gender, the transvestite, effeminate, you know, figures in religious popular tradition, for example. You can read also shaman, yeah, shaman in Burma, who are almost always women, you know, so that's another interesting fact in Southeast Asia. The shaman, the spirit medium, remember the spirit medium, right? That speak to the spirit and to the humans, they are almost always women. But then, you know, you have this interaction and characteristics of womanhood, of female and male turning into each other, and that's why it's very interesting to consider the indigenous practice of these gender relations and gender practices in Southeast Asia, including among the Buddhists. All right, here we go. Let's try breakthrough rooms, okay? This is the first time to try. And I just have questions here, but you know, to talk about in your breakthrough, I will do that later, but let's see the question first. Let me check, okay? So you can talk about how did Gautama find a middle path? If you remember one of the stories about how he became a Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama Buddha. And then talks about the Four Noble Truths, okay? Four Noble Truths, what it is, and how would you understand the Four Noble Truths in Buddhism. And then if you have time, you can talk about Theravada and Mahayana Buddhisms. Maybe you can see what unites them and what differentiate between Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism. If you can talk about how Buddhism spread to Southeast Asia, where is the origin of Buddhism, and then how it has spread to Southeast Asia, for example. I wanted to just talk about this first, okay? The questions. And then the relationship between monks and layperson in Southeast Asia, monks and lay people, the ordinary Buddhists, relationship between the Buddhism and the state, you know, governments. And if you have time, we can talk about women also, right? How we, what you think about this? Uh, let you know, I'll try to do this. Okay, this is new. Okay, where is this? Where should I go now? Okay, let's see. Where's okay, where it is gone now? All this. I need the whole thing. Okay, let me see. Sorry about all this email. I want to go back. Where's the breakthrough? Breakthrough. Okay, this one. All right, we have 37 participants into. If we have 40, then 8. Yeah, let's put the 8. Okay, 8 rooms. All right. Go ahead, please. Please join. Please join the breakout room, and then just introduce yourself between yours. You know, if and have some conversation. Okay.
How do I? Hey, Professor, I got kicked out of the group meeting somehow, and I can't get back in.
Hello. All right. Have you started discussing questions? I'm in your breakout room now. Others are still. Please unmute yourself, or I'll mute so you can talk about Buddhism.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, please. You are in the back. Alana, Linda.
Hi.
Hi.
Ella, Shaoshun, Nafel, and Noah.
So one of the questions was the difference between Theravada Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so for Mahayana Buddhism, I believe like so the goal of the Mahayana Buddhist is to become a bodhisattva, and this is like achieved through the six perfections. Also, for Theravada Buddhism, it's a much older and more conservative type compared to the Mahayana Buddhism. Yeah, that's what I know so far. I don't know if that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, yay.
And then you had one of the questions about the Four Noble Truths.
Yes. Go ahead.
So for the first one, suffering happens all the time because people always want something, always want worldly wants. And because we don't have it, we suffer, and we need to accept the fact that we suffer, and we need to accept that that's a part of life that we'll always experience, and to be able to get to the Noble Eightfold Path, it'll help us achieve it. It'll help us achieve to end the suffering.
Yeah, so the first one would be like the nature of suffering, to live is like to suffer. The second one would be like the suffering's origin. And then like the third one would be like the prognosis. So like suffering can be overcome. And then like the fourth one is kind of like to solve the suffering. So like kind of like, for example, the Noble Eightfold Path is the solution to suffering. But yeah. Oh, he's not here anymore. Okay.
Oh, he left.
Okay. I'm like, oh shit.
He thought he joined our group.
I think
Really?
he thought it was a big breakout room.
Oh, I'm like saying all
Exactly the
this
main
stuff.
question.
So now what?
I think we just wait for him. I think it's because this is his first time doing like the breakout room, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, I had a feeling it was gonna throw him off.
I know.
Yeah.
He
He
probably
asked,
joined somebody else's now.
he
I
asked me
know,
to
probably.
unmute myself. I'm like, what?
I know, same. I was like, oh.
My bad. Okay.
So I guess
Yeah,
we
he
just
just
wait for
left.
him and the rest of the class.
I know.
Wait, are we in the class?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is like the main one.
Oh. Yeah, this is the first time I take an online class, so this is on you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Hi, Professor.
Okay, now I'm in the other. All right.
You're in the main room.
In the main room now.
Yeah, you've been in when you were asking the questions in the first time, we were all in the main room.
And then, okay.
Yeah, we left the break room because we didn't know.
All of you.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
It's already. It's still in the break out room actually.
No, we're in the classroom now.
Yeah, there's other people still in break rooms, but we left our break room and it brought us back here.
I guess
Interesting.
you call everybody back in here.
All right. Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome back
Hello.
to the class. Okay. I'm still waiting. You know, they are leaving the breakout rooms. I know it's in the process.
She's like a hot.
um, okay. So did I mute you or did I unmute? How is it? Why it is all? And then how about the video? Did I stop the videos of each of you, or it is just automatic, or you did it yourself?
It's automatic, Professor.
Okay, because I want to know how, you know, I want to know what's happening because I cannot see faces. I just see the names.
Oh, we have our cameras off. Did you want us to turn them on?
Oh. No, I just fine. I just wonder about that. So it's, you can choose not to, you know, to show the video. It's fine. I just want to know, is it automatic or it is through the system?
Sometimes it's automatic, or sometimes you could choose joining in without either video on or without audio on. I know I keep turning mine on and off because of my son and everything. Right. So
okay,
I don't want to distract anybody.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I just want to know, you know, is it? Yeah, okay. So now it's almost everyone is back. All right. I'm sure that you all hear me now because we are in the classroom now again, back. I know some of you might, find it kind of technically difficult to talk in 5-person room. But the idea is that, we have a group discussions, right? And give you some time to also express your thought, questions, comments about the lectures, about the topics that we cover. Usually in the real classroom settings, we have 5, students groups, and then they discussed, right? Here we use the breakout room, and I don't know if that's also working, but at least I hope it's working. First time, and then we will try again next time. So this is the first time we try the breakout rooms for smaller discussions. But I do hope that it work, and for everybody to also engage in the lectures, not only listening to the lecture, but also actively thinking and expressing ideas. I hope that useful for everybody. Okay, we'll do it again next time. I know this is first time also for me how to do this. Like create and then leave room and then join the rooms, and some are still unassigned, and then I try to assign persons to the. So things like that, technicality that I'm still learning, but I think it should be working next time better. All right, so we'll do it again. So we are almost ends for today, and we've covered I believe all of the subjects on the slides, and I haven't read most of your weekly essays. So many questions asking about the due dates. Again, I want to stress there is no specific due date for your weekly essays, okay? But I would encourage you to start gradually write, and read and write about the topics that we cover during the time of that week. If you want to write about Buddhism, hopefully you can submit your essay on Buddhism during those weeks. Next time, Islam and Christianity and, Confucianism and others. Beside the final essays and the first essay, the first critical analysis essay, and also the midterm. All right. Okay. All right. There's another question. Let me read also the chat. If you have a question, you can ask me through the chat as well. When will you talk about critical analysis paper? Okay. I will talk about that hopefully next week. Yeah, about the critical analysis paper. All right. Okay, everybody's here. All right. All right.
Happy Ramadan, Professor.
Wait. I have to check who's talking. It is one of the things, because so many of you, and then somebody just says something, and I know who's saying something, who's saying what. So who's that? Was that Linda?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just said happy Ramadan.
Oh, okay. Thank you, everyone. For those who are celebrating the fasting month, so if you want to know about that, we will cover about Islam next week. So maybe it's good time. If you have any question about Islam or Ramadan, the fasting, yeah, that's next week. We're gonna talk about that as well. So, and yeah, I think that we end our meeting for today. Thank you so much for joining. I know again and again, feel free to email me, contact me. and stay safe and healthy as always. Okay. And yeah, love for you all. Okay. Bye. Bye for now.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Professor.
Yeah, you
Good
can
night,
say
Professor.
here, okay, for your attendance, please. Yeah, if you haven't done so. But I know most of you are already here, so yeah, good.